Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm really glad that you are here today because you're going to get a lot out of this episode. I'm going to be talking about how to control our emotions, and I'm going to be going through the 5 steps of how we can approach this. And learning to control our emotions can mean the difference between allowing life to happen to us and actually taking command of ourselves and allow life to happen for us. So for those of you new here, my name is Lee, and I guide others in the transition from past harming patterns. And recovery, that can mean substance, and that can also mean other behaviors or other lifestyles that breached that connection within ourselves and that brought harm to our lives. So there's something here for everyone. So go ahead and subscribe and make sure you hit the notification bell to get weekly guidance on how to navigate the challenges and the inspirations of your transition. And I know that learning how to control your emotions sounds like a lot. And it is. It's a pillar of self-discovery. And like everything else, it comes with practice, and it comes with determination and commitment and desire, which we all have simply by being here in this space and sharing these topics. And it's important to start by affirming that we're not miracle workers, that we can't control the initial swell of emotions that come within us, but we can control how we respond to them and how we process them and how we express them to the rest of the world. And it's very important to be able to control our emotions. And I know I don't have to elaborate much on this because we know what it's like to lose sleep because we're in a panic of regrets, or we know what it's like to wake up scared because we're fearing rejection later in the day. So things like that, these damaging feelings and emotions that can spin us out of control. And more specifically, for this space of recovery, being able to control our emotions can mean preventing us from relapse, or it can mean keeping us away from that space where we're heading down a slippery, painful slope towards those past harming patterns. And all of which basically prevents us from becoming the person that we want to become. And out of all the times that I've said easier said than done in these episodes, on a scale of 1 to 10, this is probably pretty close to 10. Reason being is because when we get hit with emotions, we are under the control of the oldest part of our brain. So basically, we are in a fight or flight survival mode. And what that does is that it hijacks the logical part of our brain, and it makes it difficult to respond rationally. And that's okay, because I'm going to be going over all of that in these steps. So once again, it does take that desire, and it takes that consistent will and practice. However, you will see that it will start to unfold from there, and that the easier said than done does become easier the more it is done. So I want to dive right in here, and I want to walk you through the 5 steps of the acronym RAIN. Now, this is used in psychology for learning how to control emotions, controlling our emotions, and I've come across it before. However, where it really had meaning for me and where it really all made sense for me is when it was introduced as relapse prevention. So I hope that regardless if it's relapse prevention or returning to old patterns, that you'll be able to recognize some of this. So the first step is R, and that stands for recognize. And this is the first entry point into controlling your emotions, because this is where you become aware that you are triggered and you realize that you need to intervene. And right now, this is where we are in that flight or fight mode, or we're super excited. So we need to combat that with something physical as well. And what we need to do is at this point is we need to breathe deeply in and out as often as we can. And what this does is it gives that old part of the brain that we're under the control of a bit of time to simmer down and to get grounded so that we can start on other work. And it's as simple as that. The first step is to recognize that we've been triggered and that we need to do something about it, and that something is breathing deeply. So the next step is A, and A stands for acknowledge. So acknowledge what just happened. And this is where a bit of the work comes in. Because now that you're a little bit settled down, you need to take a few moments to allow yourself to take an inventory of what just went down. And to make this step easier to approach, start by literally defining your emotion under the category of mad, sad, glad, or scared. Now, these are the 4 core feelings. And to help explain, let's say, for example, you were feeling jealous. Then that would likely fall under the category mad. Or if you're feeling that you were being ignored, then that could be scared because you're scared of being left out. What about feeling unloved? Well, that could likely be sad. And you will find that there's overlap, and don't get caught up too much in the importance of putting them in their exact categories. The main direction of this step is to take deliberate pause and to get the logical part of your brain tuned into the situation by giving it something useful for you to work with. Now, you may have heard I mentioned glad earlier, and it is one of the 4 core feelings, and so I am going to rain on the parade again, but we need to think about this. Being too happy, being too excited, being too overjoyed can lead us into harm's way, and we can sometimes throw caution to the wind. But it's true, too much of a good thing can leave us saying it seemed like a good idea at the time. So when you are feeling over the top excited, please enjoy yourself. But it never hurts to remind yourself that it's always a good time to stop and ground yourself. And even controlling our glad emotion becomes good practice for managing the other 3 core feelings we typically don't like, which is the mad, the sad, and the scared. So the next step is I, and that is to investigate the events. So now that some logic has taken hold and you have defined your feelings, sit with the situation and think of what really happened. And this is a good time to become your own therapist and to ask yourself some questions and to hopefully try your best to give yourself the honest answers. So what was the trigger, or what were the triggers? What were the external forces? You can ask yourself as well, did I begin to blow it out of proportion and perhaps I should have backed off sooner? You can ask, will this be the scenario I can prevent in the future? So it's things like that that you want to do an analysis of, and certainly it doesn't change what happened and it doesn't make us feel better at the time, but this step is good for 2 things. One is that it gives pause to the immediate situation from continuing to unravel. And it can also provide guidance on your next immediate steps. So sit and pay attention to the situation, because having somewhat of an idea of that will help you get to the next step. And the next step is N, and that stands for now what. And I will say that this isn't the traditional N that is typically used in the acronym RAIN. That'll be our last step. The N now stands for now what, and that was the N that was used in my relapse prevention counseling. So we ask ourselves, now what? And this is where you either try to apologize for something that you just said, only if you mean it and only if you think it helps. Or this is where you tell yourself to get out of bed and get a drink of water, or call someone, or go for a walk. And this is where you make a plan for your next immediate steps. Perhaps you need to leave the bar that you just walked into because the music made you feel good. So this is where you need to take action to either break that funk from the mad, sad, glad, or scared, and as well protect yourself from the potential harm of glad. And I hope that this makes sense within the context of those 4 core emotions. And the biggest thing that this step does is it gets us moving. It gets you into thinking about what you need to do next. It taps into your logic, and it taps into your real immediate need for yourself and what you are going to do next. So the final step, which is the traditional N in the acronym RAIN, is to non-identify. And I know you're thinking, what does that mean? Because many of us do. So it means to step back and get a bird's eye view of the bigger picture and to see the situation as though your feelings weren't present. And honestly, that seems like a lot. And this step is a struggle for many of us, particularly when the trigger just happened. But it is important to force this step, and it is very important not to skip this step. So I want you to hear me out until the end of this. Visualization helps with this step. One thing you can do is visualize your feelings written on a wall or write them down and extract those emotions from the situation. So if you were to visualize yourself lying in bed with your clothes picked out on a chair, don't see the feelings part of that. Just observe the layout. So a third party may tell that person to get up and start the day. And that can seem like a stretch for you, but I want you to keep listening. This step is where you can also think about extracting your shortcomings from the situation and what you are bringing to the situation that is only you. So if you are standing there waiting for someone who's running late, take out the part of you that jumps to conclusions. Take out the scared part of you that starts to worry. And I hope this seems to be a bit more clear. And in keeping with the strategy to control your emotions, once again, do not skip this step. It can be tempting since you've already calmed down and you've already worked some other things out. But this step is the one that allows your insight into yourself. And this is the step that really gets you thinking about the stories you tell yourself and how valid they are and how damaging they can be if they are not accurate. So take time to explore this step after the fact, later in the day. If you don't have time to sit with it and work it out for your own self-discovery at the moment, do so later. It's very important for your overall progress. So to recap, R is to recognize and breathe. A is to acknowledge the core feelings. I is to identify the triggers and reactions. N is for now what, and that's where you begin to plan for the next action. And the second N is non-identify, from that bird's eye view. So gaining control of your emotions requires your practice, it requires your time, your commitment, and your desire, and once again, all of those things that have brought you here today. So I really hope that you go for it. I really hope that you push through it. And I really hope that you go easy on yourself and be patient, because this is a game changer. It doesn't happen overnight. And you will start to see that when you gain control of your emotions, the things you want in life will start to happen for you. So check out the link below. I have a sheet. It's called Control Your Emotions. And basically that's where I reiterate what just happened, but I also include some questions that can help your approach into the specific situations. As well, my link for my website, recoverywithlee.com, is below, so you can check that out to gain more resources, to learn more about me, and to discover more for you as well. As well, I have links to my Facebook and Instagram. So I wish you all the best of luck with this. this initial start and your practice and your patience. And in the meantime, take good care of yourself and see you in the next episode.